Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about the show Dash and Lily.
The sweetest Christmas show of all time. This is such a cute story.
Yeah, did you like it?
I love it. I have only watched the first, couple of episodes, but I definitely want to watch all of it.
Okay, yay. Was this your first time watching it?
I think I had seen the first episode forever ago, whenever it came out, like a few years ago. And then, but I didn't remember what it was about. I just remember that it was cute.
Yeah, I love this show. I think 2 years ago, I decided to watch it while wrapping presents.
Oh, this is a very good present wrapping background show.
It's such a good background show, and usually I'm someone who has to watch everything scene by scene and hear every word that's said, but this show you really don't have to because there's a lot of like aesthetic shots and not a lot happens in each episode, and you can binge it in an afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you like this. I love this show.
I'm so excited to talk about it.
Me too. And I would say today's episode is probably going to be on the shorter side of things because these episodes of the TV show are really, really short. And the show itself is super short too. And today we're just talking about the pilot, so don't worry if you haven't seen all of it. We won't spoil anything for you.
Or if you haven't seen it at all, this will be a great little intro and then you can go watch it.
Yeah, and you'll have to let us know what you think. But a lot of you guys voted for this show on Instagram, and thank you. I'm glad that we got to watch it.
I know, I feel like a lot of the newer Christmas content doesn't always get traction, but this show, people really clung to, which I think is really cute.
It's a testament, I think, to how wholesome it is, or maybe the vibes that it gives compared to newer Christmas movies, because I do think it's hard to compete with Christmas movies that people have grown up with and have nostalgic feelings toward.
Yeah.
And I think it does a really good job.
I do too. Quick reminder, if you're enjoying our Christmas episodes, to leave us a review wherever you're listening and to follow us on social media at What We're Watching Pod.
Thank you so much for your reviews and for every time that you reach out to us. We just really, really appreciate it.
Okay, so the logline for this show is: a whirlwind Christmas romance builds as cynical Dash and optimistic Lily trade dares, dreams, and desires in the notebook they pass back and forth at locations around New York City.
I also thought the concept of this was just adorable.
Yeah, it is really cute, and it definitely feels different enough and modern enough, to your point, to separate itself from a lot of the Christmas classics.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just refreshing that it's a show. Like, I love that it's like a light 20-minute show that came out in the era of Ted Lasso, coming out of the pandemic. I think this is something that a lot of people were looking for.
I totally agree. That's such a good point, actually. Also, it's just very John Green vibes to me.
Very. Oh,
yeah.
You're so right. Yeah.
A little bit pretentious teenager who views the world a little bit differently. And then there's love. And yeah, it's cute.
Love it.
So this show came out in 2020. And I'm really sad because I found out that it was canceled after just one season. I don't know why.
I was going to ask you this because I saw that there were not that many episodes and there was only one season. And I wasn't sure if it was meant to be a mini-series.
It kind of feels like a limited series, and so maybe I just thought that it was supposed to be a limited series. But yeah, I think they just didn't get picked up for a season 2, so that's sad.
Sad.
It's based on the young adult novel series Dash and Lily's Book of Dares by Rachel Kahn and David Levithan. And those two were core authors to my teenage years. They also wrote Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist together, and Naomi and Eli's No Kiss List. And there's a newer one that they wrote together called Sam and Ilsa's Last Hurrah, which I haven't heard of. But you can see they've definitely got the theme going with their titles. And we also briefly mentioned David Levithan in our 10 Things I Hate About You episode because he was asked to write a book based on the movie, which I remember we thought that was so weird that the movie did so well that then a book was written about the movie. Or based on the movie, I should say. So anyway, I thought that was cool. The TV series was created by Joe Trax. I think that's how you say his name. He's the showrunner. And some of the executive producers were Brad Silberling, Sean Levy, and Nick Jonas.
Love.
Brad Silberling, because we just talked about him. He was the director of Casper. And we dive into him a little bit more there. Sean Levy directed Big Fat Liar, Cheaper by the Dozen, The Pink Panther, Night at the Museum, Date Night, Free Guy, Deadpool and Wolverine. Literally so many things.
Everything that we love. So many things we love.
Yes, he's also the producer of Stranger Things. You guys have definitely seen him before and would recognize his face. And then Nick Jonas, I'm shocked that he was a producer on this. And apparently the Jonas Brothers cameo and perform later in the show. I actually can't really remember that part, but I thought it was cool that Nick got them to cameo. I actually didn't really dive into Nick Jonas here because I'm sure that we are going to do an episode on Camp Rock one day and we can really dive into all of the Jonas Brothers.
Most definitely. Would love nothing more.
Sean Levy said, Nick was very helpful with soundtrack and music suggestions, but he was equally helpful with notes on casting, ideas regarding drafts of the scripts, or edits of episodes. He was hands-on, especially considering that the lion's share of this shoot was happening when he was on tour throughout the entire globe, doing a concert every single night.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love how hands-on he was. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think celebrities just kind of slap producer on there. Like, they just have some deal worked out and then it's just to, like, add to their resume or something, you know?
Agreed.
But no, not the situation with this, so that's nice. The show was filmed in New York City, and it featured iconic landmarks like the Strand, which is a real bookstore.
Oh, I love that.
I know, and many other things. And the showrunner Joe Trax said that he knew it had to be filmed in New York because, quote, as much as Dash and Lily are falling in love with each other, in reality, they're not together very much in the show, so they're falling in love with each other by falling in love with New York.
We love any type of rom-com in New York that just, like, sets an aesthetic scene in New York City, don't we?
Yeah, maybe that's why this show feels kind of nostalgic. It feels... I think we said this about Love, Simon, too, and I can't remember why exactly Love, Simon is considered nostalgic to me, but there's something about the vibes.
Yes, I do agree. And in this show, again, I've really only seen the first episode, but they're in a bookstore in New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a rom-com. Like,
You've Got Mail.
it's a classic. Yeah, it's a classic.
Yeah.
Okay, should we dive into the cast?
Yeah, let's do it.
First, we have Midori Francis, who plays Lily.
She's from Grey's Anatomy, Afterlife of the Party with Victoria Justice, The Sex Lives of College Girls, which I totally did not recognize her.
Oh, this is what I knew her from.
Okay.
So it is funny because this character is very different than her Sex Lives of College Girls character, in my opinion. So I thought it was fun to, like, see her in such a different role.
Oh my gosh, I was so shocked. If you guys have seen The Sex Lives of College Girls and you're wondering who we're talking about, she plays Renee Rapp's love interest in the show.
In season 2, I believe.
Yeah, I think it is season 2. I think you're right.
She, like, runs the women's center.
Yes.
On campus, yeah.
And I think because their characters are so different, I had no idea. But I was like, man, I love her. I totally know who she is now.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, she was actually nominated for a Daytime Emmy for her role as Lily.
Oh.
Which I thought was great. She's a really fun follow on Instagram, and she posts her poetry every now and then. So that's a good read, and I highly recommend. A lot of what she talks about when you read interviews with her or watch interviews with her is her identity. And so I wanted to get into that just a little bit because it's really important to her. She said that she grew up as the only non-white kid in her entire grade in a New Jersey town, and she was actually bullied a lot. She said there's a part of her that wanted to become an actor because she thought that there weren't roles for her and there wasn't room for her. And she said, I knew that with every job I got, it would be a big deal for little girls who look like me. So it's shaped basically every choice I've made.
Wow.
Yeah. I thought that was really important and meaningful.
Very meaningful. We talk a lot about the weight of people of color being in movies and what that means to young people and what that means for representation. And I think there's like I said, there's a lot of weight, I think, that comes with that I'm sure that I feel like I've seen other celebrities say, maybe not outright that they're resentful of, but just like, it is a lot to have to also take on this role of representation in addition to just, doing your job.
Mm-hmm.
But I sort of love that she has just kind of run right at that and said, like, that's why I'm doing this. That's why this is important to me. That's very cool.
Yeah, I find that really special, and I liked that.
Yeah, agreed.
About Dash and Lily specifically, she said, though our show is not a perfect example of inclusivity on all fronts, in terms of representing a half-Japanese girl, I think it's pretty groundbreaking. She's got her grandpa around, she's got her brother around, there's a full family, of varied personalities and temperaments, and they're all Japanese. Every Asian actor that they cast to be in my family is of Japanese descent, and it was special. It was special to have that feeling on set. We've talked about maybe doing Japanese New Year over at Jennifer's house, who plays my mom. We got to have all these conversations. And to be honest, I wasn't expecting them to go that extra mile, but they did, and I definitely appreciated that.
I love that. Wow, good for Netflix for doing the right thing, casting her family.
I know, seriously.
Okay, let's also talk about Austin Abrams, who plays Dash.
He's from Euphoria. That's, I think, what I recognize him from.
Euphoria! That's what he's from! Aha! Okay, yes. I knew I recognized him, but I didn't know what it was from.
He's also from The Walking Dead, Paper Towns. Oh, a John Green movie, actually. So the vibe is there.
The vibe is there.
Do Revenge, Wolves, which is a Brad Pitt and George Clooney movie. And I think he's in many other things, but those are the main things. He and Midori didn't see each other a lot while filming because they had different filming days. So they actually kept a notebook that they passed back and forth to mirror the show and to get to know each other.
Ah, that's so cute. I love that.
It's actually really hard to find stuff about his personal life online because he doesn't have social media. And he said he's not very interested in showing people his life. And he didn't say that in a rude way. I actually have this quote that I'll read from him. He said, "Yeah, I've never had it," referring to social media. "In the beginning, I remember having Facebook when I was 13 and thinking, what am I going to say? I didn't know what to talk about. Nothing felt important enough to say and put out for a bunch of people to read, and I kept going on there and using my time and looking at all these pictures, and I just didn't understand why I was doing it. And honestly, slay."
Slay. Yep, I feel that. I really feel that.
So I thought that was interesting about him, and he seems like someone, just based on the limited research that I did, he seems like someone who really cares about the craft of acting versus getting famous from acting, which I think is cool.
He gives me, and maybe this is so misplaced because I've never seen an interview of him and I don't know a lot about him, but he gives me Cole Sprouse vibes.
I was literally going to take those words. I was going to say the exact same thing. When you said he gives, I was like, Cole Sprouse.
Okay.
I hadn't thought that until this moment.
Okay, this is validating.
Yes.
Like, his character in this show gives Cole Sprouse. I think that's actually where I'm getting it.
Because Cole Sprouse is pretentious.
Yes, Cole Sprouse is pretentious, and he's a sassy boy. And if you've seen his Call Her Daddy interview, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And Dash in the first episode is Cole Sprouse on Call Her Daddy.
You're so right. And so
then hearing him be like, I'm putting a pretentious lens on this, which is not fair, but hearing him be like, I wouldn't think that I'm so self-important enough to have social media, you know? And I don't know, calling acting a craft, whatever. I'm sure he's actually lovely. But looking at it through this lens just kind of makes me laugh because he also looks a lot like Cole Sprouse to me. So they just remind me of each other.
That's so funny. And now that you say that, it's reminding me that Cole Sprouse has an Instagram account called Camera Duels. Do you know about this?
No. Is it some serious photography?
No.
Okay, what is it?
It is him catching people taking photos of him and taking photos of them first.
Of course it is. Camera Duels, of course.
Yes. So it's him taking pictures of people who are trying to be really subtle with their phones and take a picture of him.
And he's like, gotcha. And now I'm going to embarrass you on social media.
Exactly. And which is the most Cole Sprouse thing to do.
Absolutely.
He's been keeping up with it for years and years and years. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if it's been a decade because I feel like I've known about it for that long.
That is such a bitter thing to do. I mean, it is so fair for a celebrity to not want people to take pictures of them and for them to ask people not to and for them to be annoyed 1,000%. So warranted. Mm-hmm. But for him to have a social media account dedicated to just trolling those people is I don't even have beef with him. I don't even dislike him. It just is funny to me.
Yeah. I would love nothing more than to have an episode dedicated to Cole and Dylan Sprouse.
Same.
I think I know too much about them, so I would love that.
Guys, I would actually love your opinion on this because we've talked a bunch together and also on the podcast about starting a Patreon where we talk about things that are not necessarily recaps, such as doing a deep dive on the Sprouse brothers. Do you guys want that on the main feed? Do you want one episode every month to be about special topics? Or do you think that would be better for something like a Patreon so that we can keep the main feed all recaps, and then for all the like bonus deep dive content that can be somewhere else?
Yeah, let us know, because we are dying to just talk about the things that we want to deep dive, but we don't have time to deep dive because we have an episode to get into and a full recap to do. So,
and I love the recaps, and I love talking about the movies and shows. And it's so hard every month to choose only 4 or 5. So
yes.
it's hard for me to imagine sacrificing one of those. But at the same time, like, I love the idea of talking about what happened to all the Disney Channel stars. Like, what normal jobs do they have now? And we should talk about Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen.
Oh my gosh, I cannot wait.
Or like, there's just so many like little holes that we could go down. And I would just love to know, where do you guys want to find those?
Yeah, or like a new album that comes out. You know that when Reputation, Taylor's version, comes out, I want to talk about it with someone.
We need to talk about it when we get those vault tracks. It's going to be necessary.
I think so.
Or like if more beef comes up between Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo and Taylor Swift, like we need to talk about it.
We need to talk about it. We need a platform for this. Really, we just need to dedicate the time to sit and talk to each other, and then we might as well record it so that you guys can hear it too.
True. So true.
Okay, anyway, but to be fair to Austin Abrams, before we like compared him to Cole Sprouse, which I do think there are a lot of similarities between the two, I got really great vibes from Austin Abrams.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Could be wrong.
Let's protect Austin Abrams and just say Dash reminds us of Cole Sprouse, because he does.
Yes. Okay, that sounds good.
Speaking of, should we get into the recap of episode 1, which is called Dash?
Yes, let's do it. I'm so excited.
So we open inside a bookstore called The Strand, and we hear a girl's voiceover say, "Imagine this. You're in your favorite bookstore, scanning the shelf where your favorite books reside, and there, nestled between the familiar spines, sits a red notebook." And we see her grab a red notebook off the bookshelf, and then we see a ton of shots of New York decorated for the holidays, and the girl continues and says, "Imagine you're in New York and it's Christmas. You're surrounded by people, by possibility, and the hope that somewhere in the city is that one person that's meant for you. You just have to find them. How do you do that? It all depends on the kind of person you are." And we don't see the girl's face throughout any of this.
Then we see a boy, played by Austin Abrams, coming out of the subway, and a new voiceover starts. This is Dash. He says, "It's the most detestable time of the year," which I just love.
Immediately crank.
It's the most wonderful time of year, and then it's like, it's the most detestable time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't like the forced cheer, the frenzied crowds, or carolers who forget the words of their songs because they've had too much eggnog. It's very specific and niche. He also doesn't like the couples who've mistaken holiday spirit for being in love. Dash then watches a couple in love and imagines that it's him and someone else. And he says he made that mistake once too, but never again. And then a girl runs into Dash and accidentally gets tinsel all over him, and she yells, "Season's greetings," and runs away.
Then Dash gets a text from his mom, and we learn that she left him with his dad to spend Christmas in Hawaii. He overhears some carolers, and we get a close-up of his face watching them, and he actually smiles a little here, and he says, "At least someone knows the words."
Then Dash goes to his refuge from holiday hordes, the bookstore. This is the Strand. He's a pain in the butt to the guy who works at the bookstore, Mark, and he tells him a book is shelved wrong. And Mark says, "Hey kid, if you ever want to work here," and Dash kind of gets excited. And then Mark goes, "I'll remember this."
Shout out to Mark, honestly.
I love him. As Dash is looking through the bookshelves, he notices the red notebook we saw at the beginning, and he immediately grabs it to go tell the worker that it's misshelved also. But Mark is pretending to be on the phone and is ignoring him.
The notebook cover says, "Do you dare?" ... question mark. And so Dash is obviously intrigued, and he opens it up, and the first page says, "I've left some clues for you. If you want them, turn the page. If you don't, put the book back on the shelf." And Dash chooses to play, and he flips the page, and there's a coded message that needs to be deciphered by finding books, and it also says to not bother playing if he has to use his phone.
Dash tries to get Mark to help him find the book that he needs on French pianism to solve the code, but Mark refuses and says, "I promised her I wouldn't discuss anything related to that." And Dash notices that he said her and thinks, "Okay, Clue Girl, if this is how you want to play it, game on."
So he goes through the bookstore, solving the code through books, And while he's solving the code in the sex section of the bookstore, a girl named Priya from his school runs into him. And we find out that she's the best friend of the girl he dated named Sophia, and they used to share a social circle, but now they don't. And Priya invites him to her Christmas party, and he makes up an excuse that his dad is taking him to Sweden, so he can't come. But then Priya says that Sophia is coming and that she's back just for the holidays. And so you can tell he's kind of intrigued by this. But then Priya notices that Dash is reading The Joy of Gay Sex. So there's this awkward moment, obviously.
When Priya leaves, Dash reads Clue Girl's note that says, "The fact that you are willing to stand in the Strand with the joy of gay sex bodes well for our future. However, a few rules. If you're not a teenage boy, please return the book to the shelf. If you have use for the manual in your hand, I completely support that. Love is a spectrum. But if girls aren't on yours, please return the notebook to the shelf." The last thing she wants to know is if he's brave, and she asks him to share a dramatic reading. Also, the faith she has in a teenage boy.
That's what I was thinking this entire time. I'm like, show me the teenage boy that's going to do this. But that's why it's a show.
If you're not a teenage boy, please return the book to the shelf. That book would never be opened.
No. Dash notices a microphone nearby and reads Joni Mitchell's song River. And his voiceover says that he likes the song and wonders if Clue Girl is there listening to him. And then Mark, the bookstore employee, unplugs the mic on him and says, "I'm putting you out of your misery. You got what you needed." And he says that the last two words of the message were the ones he just said, "on Christmas." The full message is, "Are you going to be lonely on Christmas?" And then Dash's next task is to write in the notebook about how this time of year makes him feel. If she likes his answer, he might hear from her.
At this point, Dash is hooked, and he takes the notebook from the Strand and goes to the pizza place where his best friend Boomer, played by Dante Brown, works. Boomer has talked to Priya and tells Dash that he's a total ally. And he also thinks he's going to Sweden. Dash tells him he's not actually going to Sweden and he's still straight. Then he tells him about the notebook that he found at the Strand. And Boomer can tell that Dash likes this girl who wrote the notebook and says that he hasn't heard him talk about a girl since... And then he gets quiet. And Dash says, "You can say her name, Boomer. She's not Voldemort." And Boomer says, "Actually, you're supposed to say Voldemort's name. It takes away his power." They work up a plan to figure out who Clue Girl is. Boomer has the idea to get her to order a pizza, and then when she calls and places the order, they'll get her name. Dash says that he'll consider.
Then Dash takes his pizza and heads to his dad's apartment, and we find out that he told his dad he was going to be with his mom for Christmas, so that he could have his dad's apartment to himself. So he's by himself. And since his classmates also think he's going to Sweden, he says the alone time is his Christmas gift to himself.
He is so Cole Sprouse, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
While he watches a movie by himself, he gets a flashback to his time with Sophia. Dash seemed really happy when he was with her, but then Sophia tells him that she's moving to Brazil for her dad's job. Then back in the present, Dash gets really sad and he turns off the TV.
He grabs the notebook and starts answering Clue Girl's question about how this time of year makes him feel. And he says it's the most detestable time of year. We can imagine that he probably writes his exact monologue from the beginning of the episode. That's what it feels like he's launching into. It is kind of funny here that they're making it out to be like Dash is this jaded man because of his previous relationship, which I feel like we do always say that we love movies and TV shows that take teenagers' feelings seriously.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually think it's fair that they do this, but it is like it is a little bit funny because he's so serious.
It's dramatic.
Yeah.
He's a drama queen, actually.
He is.
It's fine. We all are when we're teenagers.
True.
I think that's why I like things like this and John Green, and this is probably why I love David Levithan and Rachel Kahn's books too. They do take it seriously from the perspective of the teenager who like thinks they're really smart, thinks they know everything, does feel feelings really, really strongly. And so it's relatable, I think. I don't know.
Yeah. I was in relationships very young, like starting in middle school, that I felt like were so serious. And they were, because to me at the time they totally were. And I just remember one time, I can't remember if I was talking to my mom or something, and you know, people were always telling me like, "Oh, you'll get it one day. Like when you grow up, you'll like have perspective, you know."
Just wait.
Yes, exactly. And I just remembered always thinking like, but this is the oldest I've ever been, you know? And I think that's just true for teenagers. Like for Dash in this situation. Like, his most recent life experience, at the oldest and most mature that he's ever been, is this, like, heartbreak. So, of course, he's going to be jaded over it, you know?
Melodramatic, for sure.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. That's a good point. The next day, the red notebook is back on the shelf at the bookstore. Dash tells Boomer that he left clues that instruct Clue Girl to one of the shelves in the video section of the pizza shop, and all Boomer has to do is keep an eye out for her so he can find out who she is.
Later, Boomer sees someone leaving the shop and then notices that she left the red notebook on the video shelf, but he totally missed her because it was during the lunch rush. He just sees, like, the back of her coat as she's running out the door, which is tragic.
Very tragic. The notebook says, "Nice try. You sent me into a trap."
She knows everything.
I love her. She says if he wants to learn more about her, he'll have to do it through the notebook. And if he wants her name, he'll have to earn it with a dare.
Then Boomer and Dash go to Macy's, and Dash says he feels like he knows Clue Girl. She's sarcastic, sophisticated, and sadistic for sending him into a department store before Christmas. Dash does the dare, which involves stealing Santa's hat, and he gets kicked out of the Macy's. And the Santa hat is embroidered Lily, so now he knows her name.
Yay. Then we flash back in time to the previous day when the girl with the tinsel runs into Dash, and we find out that this is Lily. She runs to join the carolers, and she's the voice that he heard who made the carolers sound better. Dash watches her and smiles, and she smiles back, and his voiceover repeats, "Well, at least someone knows the words." And that's the end.
I loved this ending. I loved that we went back to the very beginning scene and we got to see it from her perspective. Thought it was so cute.
It was so cute.
Do you know, is the next episode Lily? Like, is it from her perspective?
I think so, yeah. I
Okay.
think it switches. Maybe not the whole time, but it does a little bit.
Cute.
Yeah, and I think I really like, from what I remember, it's been a couple years, but I really like her storyline too.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think it's kind of interesting that they start with Dash, and maybe it's because of the mystery element involved, I assume.
Yeah.
But he, to me, is like the more boring character.
Yeah. But it hooks you because then you want to know about her, so.
It does. That's true.
Bravo. I'm so excited to watch the rest of this. I'm definitely going to put it on when I'm wrapping presents. That is such a good idea.
Oh, I hope all of you do, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
It's cozy. It's great. I actually might do it too this year.
Well, thank you guys so much for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave us a rating and review wherever you're listening. And follow us on Instagram at WhatWe'reWatchingPod. And please let us know what you think about what we were saying earlier about the deep dive episodes.
Yeah, we are really genuinely curious. And I know this was a really short episode because, to be honest, the TV show is very, very short too. It's like 20 minutes. And so there's not that much to cover. But if you guys are really on the holiday kick and you want to listen to more episodes that are like this, we have a lot from last year that you can catch up on. And I'll just tell you what those are. We did Elf last year, The Holiday, and The Santa Claus. So go check them out.
I loved doing those last year, and they were so fun. And I know we got a lot of requests this year for the holiday, so I hope you guys go back and listen to that episode.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It was one of my favorites from last year, yeah.
And honestly, I will rewatch The Holiday again this year, I think.
Absolutely.
Just for the scene of Cameron Diaz running through the snow.
Yep.
In high heels.
Absolutely.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll be back next week.
Bye.
Bye.